If you've been thinking about fixing your garden, this is the best time to do it. I know you're busy, work, family, responsibilities, everything seems to come first, and honestly, that's completely understandable. Your days are already full, and by the time you get a moment to yourself, the last thing you want is another task added to your list. And then there's the garden. It's always there, quietly waiting. You see it when you walk past, maybe when you come home, or when you're leaving in the morning. You notice the parts that don't feel right. Maybe something that isn't growing the way you expected. Maybe it just doesn't look the way you imagined it would be. And you tell yourself, I'll get it to it soon. Maybe this weekend, maybe by next week. But then something else comes up. Plans change, the weather shifts, work gets busy again, and before you know it, that soon keeps moving further away. Weeks pass like that. The garden doesn't get worse overnight, so it never feels urgent enough to stop everything and fix it. It just stays almost right, but not quite. And it's not because you don't care, it's just that life keeps moving. And the garden becomes one of those things that's always in the background, waiting for the right time. But the truth is, that perfect moment you're waiting for rarely shows up. And while everything else moves forward, the garden quietly stays the same, or slowly drifts further away from what you actually want it to be.
And here's what most people don't realize.
In Vancouver, timing matters more than almost anything else when it comes to your garden. Spring isn't just another season, it's the moment when everything begins to take shape. The soil starts to warm up after months of cold and rain. Microbial activity wakes up, nutrients begin to move again, and most importantly, roots begin to establish. This is when plants decide how they're going to grow for the rest of the year. And if the soil is right now, roots go deeper, plants become stronger, more resilient, and easier to maintain if spacing and replacement are right now. Everything grows into balance instead of competing for light and water. But if things are off at this stage, the problems don't stay small. They carry forward. Plants struggle to establish, water doesn't drain properly or dries out too quickly. Growth becomes uneven, and by the time you notice it in early summer, it's no longer a simple fix. That's why this window matters so much, because what you do now determines how your garden will perform through summer, or through spring, summer, and even into fall. If you miss this window, you're not just delaying progress, you're locking in problems. You don't just lose a couple of weeks where things could have looked better, you lose the foundation of the entire season. And instead of enjoying your garden when the weather finally turns warm, you end up spending that time trying to correct things that should have been done properly and set up properly from the start.
Like, I see this all the time. So actually people wait, and they think they'll deal with it when things slow down, when the weather is nicer, when they have more time. And before they know it, spring has already passed.
Then comes June, July comes, and that's when they finally decide to do something. But by then, everything has already moved forward without them. The soil has started to dry out, the structure of the garden is already set. Plants have either taken hold in the wrong way or struggled quietly beneath the surface. And now, instead of making the simple adjustments, everything becomes reactive. You're no longer setting up things, you're trying to fix problems. That's where it gets harder, because now you're working against heat, against stress, against plants that are already trying to survive instead of thrive. Even something as simple as planting or moving things become more risky, and it costs more time, more effort, more replacement plants when things don't make it. More trial and error, trying to correct things that should have been done once properly at the start. And even after all that, it still doesn't feel quite right. The space might look better than before, but it doesn't feel settled. It doesn't feel easy. There's always something slightly off, something that needs adjusting again, and that's the frustrating part. Because most of it could have been avoided, not by doing more work, but by doing the right work at the right time.
I've been working in Vancouver gardens for over 25 years. And over that time, I've seen the same pattern again and again. People focus on plants, on products, on what looks good in the moment. But timing...
It makes a bigger difference than what most people think. Because when you work with the right timing, things fall into place much more naturally. The soil responds better, plants establish better, and the whole garden requires less effort to maintain. But when the timing is off, even the best plants and the best intentions struggle. And that's often the difference between a garden that feels effortless and one that always feels like work.
When things are set up properly, something shifts. You stop feeling like you're constantly behind, like there's always something to fix or catch up on. Instead, the garden starts to feel settled.
The plants grow into their space naturally. The soil holds moisture the way it should. You're not second-guessing every decision or wondering why something isn't working. And the biggest difference isn't just how it looks, it's how it feels. You walk outside, and instead of seeing a list of problems, you see a space that's calm, balanced, and easy to be in. It doesn't demand your time. It gives something back to you. And that's when a garden becomes what it was meant to be. Not another responsibility, but a place you can actually enjoy, even with a busy life.
So right now, I'm helping a small number of homeowners take a step back and really look at their space in a different way.
Not just what's visible on the surface, but what's actually happening underneath. How the soil is behaving, how water moves through the space, and how light changes throughout the day. Because most of the time, the issue isn't obvious. It's a combination of small things that don't quite line up. And when you don't see that clearly, you end up guessing. Trying one thing, then another, spending time, spending more money, but never quite getting the result you want. So instead of adding more, we simplify. We look at what's already there, what's working, and what's quietly creating problems. And once that becomes clear, everything else gets easier. Decisions become simpler, you know where to focus, you know what actually matters, and most importantly, you stop wasting your time on things that don't make a difference. Because when you understand your space properly, you don't need to do more. You just need to do the right things in the right order.
And for the first 10 homeowners, we're including a few things to make this easier for you to get started.
Not to push you into anything, but to remove some of the hesitation that usually comes with making a change. So the first step feels lighter, more comfortable, and more clear. There's a 10% saving to get started. Just enough to get you to that extra confidence to take action now, instead of waiting and second guessing. And we're also including a 10% gift voucher for DH Garden Center. So when you're ready to choose your plants or add finishing touches, you're not starting from zero. You'll have access to carefully selected indoor and outdoor plants, along with unique plant pots and handmade decor that actually fits the space, instead of just filling it in. And if you decide to take things further and improve the garden more completely, there's also 10% savings there as well. So everything connects. You're not just getting a one-time suggestion and left to figure out on your own. You're supporting at each step, from understanding your space, to choosing the right elements, to making the changes that bring it all together. And that's really the goal. Not just to help you begin, but to make sure that the process stays simpler, clear, and manageable all the way through.
The only thing is, this timing isn't something you can come back to whenever it's convenient.
It's a very specific window. In Vancouver, spring moves quickly. One moment the soil is just warming up, the next everything is already growing, setting, reacting to the conditions you've given it. And that window, it doesn't stay open. You might feel like you still have time, maybe a few more weeks, maybe after things slow down a bit. But the truth is, by the time it feels urgent, the opportunity has already passed. And once it's gone, you're not just pressing pause, you're carrying everything forward. The same layout that doesn't quite work, the same plant that struggle, the same issues that slowly build over time. And instead of enjoying your garden through the warmer months, you find yourself fixing, replacing, trying to make it feel right again. Another year goes by like that. Not terrible, but not the way you really wanted it either. And that's the part most people don't expect. It's not one big mistake, it's simply missing the moment when things could have been set up properly from the beginning. If this sounds like
you don't need to figure everything out on your own, just message me or comment spring, and we can start with something simple.
I'll take a look at your space, your situation, and what you've already tried. No pressure, no complicated plans, just a clear conversation about what's actually going on. Because most of the time, it's not everything that needs to change. It's just a few key things that haven't been set up properly yet. And once you see that clearly, everything else becomes easier. You'll know where to focus, what to leave alone, and what will actually make a difference. So instead of guessing or waiting for the right time, you can take one small step now and start moving your garden into the right direction. I'm Darrell, and I'll see you in the garden.